State of the Spartans, a News 10 sports special, is brought to you by MSU Federal Credit Union.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to News 10's State of the Spartans half-hour special. I'm Tim Stout, and we have a very busy show for you tonight, and it includes the latest with Michigan State University President Samuel Stanley. We'll also have Athletic Director Bill Bekman here in our studio tonight to end our program. First, beginning tonight, let's look at what has happened thus far, so detailed and complicated. The Michigan State football season, along with the rest of the Big Ten's fall sports, as we know, pushed back to the spring of 2021 at the earliest. Numerous conferences, big and small, across the nation, including the Pac-12, have joined the Big Ten in making that difficult decision. Concerns over the spread of the coronavirus and too many unknowns regarding the pandemic, of course, have led to all these decisions. And how does this impact the other non-revenue sports, as they're called at Michigan State? We'll take a look at what no March Madness, followed by no fall football, could mean for Michigan State's athletic department budget. It has certainly been an interesting start to the Mel Tucker era as a football coach in East Lansing. To take a look at the strange beginning to his time here, we now give you News 10's Seth Wells. Seth?
It's in the schedule for the Big Ten's spring football season has not yet been determined, but it is likely that we will go an entire calendar year with Mel Tucker as the head coach here at Michigan State without him ever coaching a game at Spartan Stadium.
Happy to be home.
When Mel Tucker muttered those words back on February 12th, little did he know that home is exactly where he would be spending the majority of his first 6 months in charge of the Spartans football program. A month after his introductory press conference, the coronavirus pandemic gripped the nation, ultimately leading to the demise of the Big Ten's fall sports season.
We were cautiously optimistic going into camp, but our guys handled it well. I mean, they're like I said, they're a mature group. We've done a great job communicating with them along the way, and so obviously there was some disappointment, but not necessarily surprised.
Despite the setback, Michigan State Athletic Director Bill Bekman says he is impressed with what he has seen from Tucker as he guides the program through unprecedented times.
I couldn't be more proud of the work that he's been able to accomplish under what by any definition are just the most challenging of circumstances. He just sort of picks up his lunch pail and goes to work and conquers the next task.
As Tucker and his staff look forward to taking the field with the team for the first time this spring, they will take the extra time they have now to continue working, as well as getting to know each other after a summer of seclusion. Reporting in East Lansing, I'm Seth Wells, News 10.
Mel Tucker says his program has developed a plan for moving forward and that his players seem to be very excited about it. Samuel Stanley came from Stony Brook a little more than a year ago to become Michigan State's president, and let's just say it's been quite a year for him in a variety of ways, right? Dealing, of course, with the Nassar issues and now this year-long pandemic. I sat down with Samuel Stanley at his Cowles House residence on campus, masks required for all of us, right, to get his thoughts on the state of Spartan athletics, all the while realizing that he is a medical doctor besides serving as the university president. Yep. Doctor, I thought about what I was going to ask you first, and the first question is medically related because you have a medical background. Athletically, is it going to require absolutely a vaccine with credibility to play college sports like we know them, or do you think medically something short of that could occur that lightens the load so we can get back before the vaccine?
So what a great question, and I think it's complicated. I think a vaccine obviously would be the key answer. I think that's probably the most definitive answer. I think if we could lower the prevalence of disease, do the things everybody's talked about, the kind of shelter in place we did, the wearing of masks, everything, if we could drop the levels down significantly so that the levels in the community were very low, so that the prevalence was very low, I think that would increase your chance of being able to do it safely. If you knew that, let's say, 0.1% of people were infected, so only 1 in 1,000, that would give you the opportunity, I think, to do more of these contact things and know statistically you're running much less of a risk. So I think that could help change the dynamics a little bit, but I think the clearest thing and the surest thing is a vaccine. For the contact sports, obviously, like football, like basketball, where people come to close, that's the surest thing I think we could do.
We hear about spring football. Do you believe that's a reality?
I think it's possible. I think, again, we're going to use this time, again, to take a look at everything we were doing, to understand are the things we could have done better. Clearly, what's happening on the outside, as I mentioned before, makes a huge difference. Again, if disease burden would go down all around us, if we were having rates of testing positivities that were less than 1%, you could start changing, I think, the dynamic of what you can do or not do. At this point in time, it's hard to say.
Protocol. If it comes to a decision on, say, spring football, is that the commissioner's call? If it's the president's call, does it have to be 14-0, 8-6? How does that? Who makes the call?
So I don't think there's any rules like that. I think again, you know, the Big Ten Conference, we really listen to the commissioner a lot on these kinds of decisions. We really rely on his advice. At the end of the day, the presidents need to weigh in on what happens.
We have more coming up with a Michigan State president later on in our half hour tonight. And he fully acknowledges the athletic department's revenues, just as those for the remainder of the university are in dire straits this fiscal year, with no definitive answers about the financial issues for the school in the future. Just because the high school football season is pushed to the spring doesn't mean you can't get all of your sports coverage on the famed award-winning News 10 Sports Blitz Friday nights this fall. Starting next week, 1 week from tomorrow night, our Seth Wells will be back on the anchor desk with everything you need to know regarding high school sports, and the Detroit Pro teams as well, and who knows what else. Make sure to tune in Fridays, as you usually have for years, Fridays at 11 o'clock for the Sports Blitz. With the Michigan State budget under pressure due to the pandemic's impact on basketball and football, the non-revenue sports are in a tricky spot. We know that. Here now, coming up, if cuts to athletics are on the table next on tonight's version on this show, The State of the Spartans. Welcome back to State of the Spartans. Even Michigan State basketball coach Tom Izzo himself would tell you football is the main sport every year on the East Lansing campus, and canceling the season such as this fall has people up in arms. But what about the other fall sports? Our Spencer Soischer has a closer look at the Spartans who were sitting out without as much attention.
Fall sports getting spiked down by the Big Ten could have long-term effects, especially for non-revenue sports. AD Bill Bekman is looking to cut costs and wouldn't rule out the possibility of cutting non-revenue programs.
We have to be in never say never mode. I think there's nothing that we're going to immediately take off the table. Everything has to be an option as we explore how to close this gap as best we possibly can.
When the time is right, volleyball coach Kathy George is ready for her team to take the court. They're still practicing despite their season being over.
I mean, we want to play. I mean, there's no doubt our team is anxious and ready, but we also know that it's a bigger picture than just what we want to do. It's what we should do. We're willing as a coach's body to, go along with the advice from the Big Ten and from the medical experts that are out there and trying to make the best decision for our student athletes.
Men's soccer is another sport that is off right now. It could get cut. It could also be played in the spring. Playing later in the year is something that doesn't scare off Coach Damon Rensing.
If we come back in January and start playing games in late February, early March, we're going to have some rough games there. But when we start to get to our most important games towards the end of April and early May, we're playing some of our most important games in the best weather that's available.
Lots of possibilities for what could happen to non-moneymakers is still in play.
All right, thank you, Spencer. Bill Bekman, by the way, says that cutting sports programs a last resort, and the athletic department will do its best to reduce operational costs in other ways. Those are questions yet to be answered. As if the lack of football in the fall isn't enough, there's a chance we might not see the Spartans on the basketball court in the Breslin Center or elsewhere this school year. Our News 10's Kellen Buddy now talking about the future of Spartan basketball this coming season.
Just as football was a few weeks ago, the Big Ten basketball season is still in limbo. Michigan State Athletic Director Bill Bekman tells me there's still a lot of planning left to do.
As Coach Izzo has said recently, we need to be creative. We need to put everything on the table.
One of the options being considered, a bubble, just like what's being done with the National Basketball Association in Orlando.
It's been successful, so we know that works.
The biggest question facing students, making sure their student athletes are first and foremost students. President Samuel Stanley says a bubble is not impossible.
The question is, how well does it adapt to college? And so I think this is something we'll be looking at. We're also taking a hard look at how one might do other sports like basketball or ice hockey or so on, and do them safely.
And the possibility for a Big Ten basketball bubble, much more likely with Michigan State taking online classes. We will, of course, keep you updated on the status of the Big Ten basketball season in Michigan State. Reporting at the Breslin Center, I'm Kellen Buddy, News 10.
Coming up next on our special program tonight, the state of the Spartans. The Big Ten may not be playing football this fall, but other Power 5 conferences have not ruled out the possibility. They're scheduled. That story when we return. Stay with us. Welcome back. Michigan State University President Samuel Stanley, I found, seems to enjoy Michigan State athletics. He attends many events as he can with his busy schedule. We have more of our interview now regarding the future of the athletic department and the current major issues it faces moving forward, prior to, as I asked the president earlier, the discovery of a credible vaccine. To Michigan State's athletic future, when you look at what the financial hit reportedly this is going to be, would you believe in your own mind that regardless of how fast this goes away, the athletic program here is going to look different in the future? And if so, how so?
So I think it's hard for me to say at this point in time, since all of these things have just taken place. We don't know what's going to happen with spring football and so on. But I think it certainly has put a stress on it. There's no question about that. This is a definite financial definite financial hurt, obviously, to the institution and to athletics. And so I think we'll be looking at everything else we do in the university as well to understand how we can do things more effectively and efficiently, and athletics will be no different. There's been a great tradition of MSU sports. It's a remarkable tradition of Michigan State University sports, and we want to do everything we can to try and preserve that. And we know how much it means, not just to the university, but everybody around us. So we're committed to doing everything we can, but we also have to live within financial realities. So we'll be looking for help in some sense, looking for our loyal fans to continue to support the team. That's going to be very important as we go forward. We have some great donors who care very much about the Spartans. I see this as a temporary thing. I can't put an exact end to it, but I see it as a temporary thing. And I think we can come back from this, but how different we'll look at this point, it's a little difficult for me to say right now.
Would you be surprised if the other three power conferences actually play a football season this fall, and to that end, relatively hassle-free?
You know, I hate to handicap this because, again, I think we've made our decision, and I'm very comfortable with the decision that the Big Ten made. I think there are certainly challenges, as we've talked about. I think the difficulty is we know what you can do to prevent transmission of COVID-19, right? You and I are doing it right now and wearing masks. We're socially distanced. We know these things are really important. Contact sports like football don't allow you to do any of those things. So, as I said, it has to take place in an environment where nobody is infected. We operate today, at least I do, on an environment where everybody's infected. I assume everybody has COVID-19, including me, and I act accordingly. This is turning that thing upside down. So the ability to do that is really, to me, can only be achieved perhaps, again, by vaccine, as we talked about, by really lowering the prevalence in the community, or by doing the bubble, as the NBA and NHL has did. And it's very hard for me to see doing the bubble effectively with college athletes, because they're not just full-time professional players, of course. They're student athletes, and they have those kind of requirements. So it's difficult for me to see how that might be achieved. It doesn't mean it's impossible.
Our thanks to Michigan State University President Dr. Samuel Stanley. He adds that many of the decisions the school makes is based on the issues that arise at comparable colleges across America, and a key reason why no students will be on campus for the fall semester. And if there are none this winter, who knows? Who knows how that might affect sports the remainder of the school year? The Big Ten and Pac-12 both made the decision to stay away from football in the fall, but other conferences like the SEC, Big 12, and Atlantic Coast Conference have not yet pushed their season to the spring just yet. Hey, it remains to be seen what would happen to the football championships and the bowl games if the football bowl subdivision schools remain split between playing in the fall and the spring. And there are also concerns that players at the Big Ten schools could be frustrated, we know some are, by the decision the conference made, and may look elsewhere to play and finish their degree. As for those other major conferences trying to play, again, the MSU Athletic Director Bill Bekman hopeful everyone can get on the same page.
We really didn't spend a lot of time focusing on what other folks were doing. I mean, I think we spent a lot of time focusing on what we thought was the right decision for our people at this time. And it's very sad that we aren't all on the same page such that we can have a national championship game, or maybe there's some way we can find to do that.
Let's say good evening now to Deidre Davis, who is the General Marketing Officer, the head of marketing at the MSU Federal Credit Union. Man, you told me 14 offices and 21 across the state of Michigan. What a growing organization, huh?
Yes, definitely. We've absolutely been on an upward trajectory for the past many years. It's great to see and great to be able to help so many people throughout the state.
Yeah, MSU FCU, as it's called, has been such a part of Michigan State sports throughout so many years and all that. So I would imagine this is a different type of year toward the end of the calendar year. How has MSU FCU been affected by all this?
Yeah, so like you said, we've been a partner to MSU for so long, and that's certainly going to continue. We think, obviously, with no fall sports, it's kind of like in the spring when those were canceled. We're sad to see it because we're big fans. We bleed green, but we understand, and we really think that the safety of the student athletes and the coaches is of the utmost importance. And so we'll be here cheering them on when those sports return. And in the meantime, it gives us, I think, an opportunity for us to look at different creative ways that we can help support the university. And so much of what we do really goes back to our wanting to help the university to enhance its offerings, especially in regards to arts and culture, in addition to the sports programming. And so we'll continue to do that and see what we can do. Maybe it's enhance virtual education in regards to finance online, different things like that. So it gives us an opportunity, I think, to be creative with the solutions.
Yeah, we hear about the retailers in the area who've struggled to overcome this. Has this been a struggle financially for the credit union?
So we definitely saw changing member behavior in March and April. So certainly fewer loans because people weren't going out. They didn't have a need maybe to replace that car. They maybe weren't even in the market to buy a new house at that time. But we've seen over the last couple months that has really turned around. And what we found is as long as we continue to offer the products and services that help benefit our members, then they're going to continue needing those things and from us. And so last month was a record-breaking month for mortgages and auto loans, and so we think just again offering what our members need when they need it, then everything will work itself out.
Yeah, I've got just a couple of seconds left. Deidre, any new products or services now coming forward?
Yeah, we rolled out both the Back to Business loan to help businesses get back on their feet and back to business, and Savings Builder because we noticed many people did not have those emergency funds in the accounts.
We thank Deidre Davis and the MSU Federal Credit Union for making tonight's telecast possible, but we're not done. You've seen Bill Bekman. We've zoomed to get him. We've gone location to get him. But what's the absolute latest on the state of this story? Bill joins me here in the studio when the State of the Spartans returns. Stay with us. Welcome back. Well, you've seen Michigan State Athletic Director Bill Bekman throughout our program tonight. He's been on Zoom. We've had him in different locations, but this is such a never-ending story, and it changes every hour. We actually were able to get Bill Bekman to stop in our studio here for our show tonight. I appreciate it a great deal, Bill. And for that matter, because this changes every hour, anything today at all about this story worth passing on to our audience before we're done tonight?
Well, as we sit here today, we continue to work on modeling with our Big Ten peers to play football. So we continue to work on it. Yeah, obviously, the commissioner had put a pause. So far, it's been a pause and not a stop. And so it's our great hope that as we model plans for the future, we'll be able to play after the first of the year and get things up and running again. And
go ahead. I was going to say, I see a January model, a March model, an April model, and all that. Do we need more time before one of those models is selected?
Yeah, I think in the coming weeks we'll settle on something, and part of it is making sure that we leave plenty of time so that we can have a normal 21 season and give the students an opportunity to rest and recover. And part of it is making sure on the front end that our medical modeling and our medical protocols are in place so that we can be sure that we're testing and contact tracing and doing all those things to make sure that everybody's completely safe, or as safe as possible.
My read on you through these months has been, if nothing else, you would like to see in your own mind as normal a 2021 12-game schedule next fall as possible, correct?
Correct, yes.
And for that to happen, must there be a vaccine, or do you think something short of a credible vaccine distributed everywhere could produce that?
I think a vaccine obviously would be wonderful, but I do think something short of that would still be possible to have a successful 21 season. I think if the virus dissipates, if we get better medical protocols, and the advances in the medicines are improving, literally week to week. You're not seeing people on ventilators the way that you did at the beginning of this process. So I think if we can find the tools to get people safe, obviously a vaccine would be a huge piece of that toolbox, but I don't think it's absolutely essential.
The moments we have left, the saliva tests I'm hearing about, if those saliva tests work, would they be useful?
Well, actually, that's a really critical recent update. Just this week, the FDA approved a saliva test that was developed at Yale University, and if we can use that, we'll be doing it on a near daily basis if we can.
I appreciate your coming in. Best wishes moving forward. As we say, stay safe. For all the Spartans out there, stay safe. We thank MSU Federal Credit Union, for sponsoring our program tonight. That's the state of the Spartans, but that could change tomorrow, and it could change around the corner, and let's hope that it all, of course, changes for the best. Thank you to all of you for joining us tonight. We'll see you on News 10 moving forward. Don't forget the Sports Blitz 1 week from tomorrow night. We'll see you next time and hope it's a better state of the Spartans moving forward. Good night.